Hello, this is my first video of trying to read aloud fanfics. This one is called Little Blue Bandaid Boy by Artemis_Venus. Thank you very much for letting me read this out and hope you all enjoy. So I'm gonna read the summary and then I'll read the notes with the CWs. Okay. Tommy has a nasty habit of picking his skin. It's a way to escape the harsh, lonely reality he lives in. Then he meets Wilbur. TWs for a majority of the beginning is about Tommy's bad habit of ripping his hangnails, vivid description of blood, reference slash mentioned child neglect, reference slash mentioned self-destruction habits, blood, and suicidal thoughts. And just as another warning, this is not representative of Tommy's real persona. It's slightly based off his Dream SMP character and mostly online personality, and the same goes for Wilbur. This is not a ship fanfic, so do not think that. If you do think that, please exit out of my YouTube channel and do not read this fic. One more thing before we start, I do have somewhat of a stutter and I can start to talk really fast, and I'm very sorry about that. But anyway, let's start, and I hope y'all enjoy. When Tommy was 12, he realized he had a nasty habit. It started with simply tearing off the hangnails that sat temptingly on the base of his fingertips. Of course, they always ripped farther than he had wanted, and they had stung far worse than he imagined. He told himself after he did it, maybe a fifth time, and the skin blossomed in red, that he would stop doing it. It hurt and it did jack shit for him. Yet, a year passed, and he grew addicted to the small pinprick of pain each tear brought him. He brushed it off as something he needed to do. The hangnails bothered him. Tommy had always been regarded as loyal, and unfortunately it was true for his bad habits as well. So for 4 years, he tore away his hangnails because the pain was far better than the torment of reality. For 4 years, his fingers sat crusted in dark red, only to be opened back up the next day. For 4 years, he used it as a way to ground himself from nerves and the odd, floaty feeling often found accompanying him through empty houses in his fucked up childhood. For 4 years, he told himself it was fine. He would stop eventually. For 4 years, Tommy tore the skin from his fingers because it gave him a purpose. It gave him a way to ask for help, if anyone cared enough to pay attention. Perhaps the saddest part was that he continued, even after it was obvious no one wanted to confront that particular part of his. Avoiding what was right in front of him for gilded happiness seemed like a fair trade anyway. "Fuck you!" Tommy screeched as he lunged across the lunch table, wildly reaching for the apple Wilbur had just snatched from his lunch. The lunchroom cast a few glances towards the unlikely pair, the older, obviously rich, and put-together senior, and the feral, loud, and dirty-mouthed child known as Tommy in it. Wilbur just laughs, bringing his ringed and painted fingers up to his mouth to take a bite of the apple. Tommy glared at his friend. What an idea that was! Half-heartedly, and crossed his arms. Dick. Wilbur grinned with a mouthful of apple, rolling the bitten fruit back across the table. Tommy glared at it for half a second before decidedly picking it up. It was his only meal for the day, after all. Not that Wilbur knew that, of course. From the few months he has known him, he can gather that Wilbur is the type that would have fussed over it for whatever odd reason. He eats the apple thoughtfully, eating it all in just a few seconds. He watches Wilbur unpack his own lunch, a sandwich that somehow looks rich, chips and fruit, with a concealed twitch of envy. He knows Wilbur's dad packs his lunch. He's told him. Tommy's dad does nothing of the sort. He's long gone, and his stepdad could care less if he was even alive. Wilbur looks up quickly, catching Tommy in the obvious stare at a sandwich. The fucker just grins, cooing at Tommy. "Aw, you look so cute when you're upset," he informs Tommy, sounding somewhat genuine. Tommy, the big man he is, retorts, "Shut up!" and flushes red. He anxiously picks at his fingers under the table, pulling up his skin and barely noticing the blood. That is until he goes quite deep and far, and he hisses quickly while telling Wilbur that he's a shit friend. He's not. He's the best and only one that Tommy adored. He draws his finger up to his mouth quickly, already sucking on the metallic-tasting skin. Wilbur frowns at him, concern flickering across his features. "Are you okay?" he asks, squinting through his round glasses at Tommy. Tommy gives him a thumbs up with the finger that's not currently in his mouth. Wilbur squints at that too. When the bleeding slows, Tommy takes his finger out of his mouth. "Sorry," he mutters, wiping it against the table. "Anyway, as I was saying, you're a dick." "Tommy," Wilbur suddenly interrupts, leaning forward and resting his hand on the table's edge. Tommy glances at him in confusion, then annoyance. "You just proved my point, Will," he says, pointing an accusing finger at Wilbur. He's expecting him to slap it away, or make a retort, but not for him to fucking grab it. Wilbur grabs his whole wrist, pulling it forward, and Tommy freezes, although he knows Wilbur has no bad intentions. "Tom's." Wilbur starts slowly, inspecting the torn fingers. "Do you pick your fingers?" Tommy scrunches his face and tries to pull his hand back. "No, Tommy." Oh, he apparently is adamant on this topic. Tommy huffs, slumping his shoulder and arm, resting the elbow on the table. "Yeah, so what?" Wilbur looked at him from over his glasses, frowning. "Your fingers are absolutely destroyed." "Gee, thanks, Captain Obvious," Tommy snorts, finally pulling back his hand. Wilbur stares at him with a look Tommy can't discern. "What, dickhead? It's not a big deal," Tommy says, slightly defensive. Usually people just don't care, and rarely notice. And Wilbur is reacting differently. Of course he is. He is Wilbur. The oddest and best part of Tommy's shitty life. "It's not good for you," Wilbur says, still looking at Tommy with a weird look. "So are drugs," Tommy tells him, hiding his hands in his lap. Wilbur shakes his head, calls him a child, and Tommy forgets about it by the end of lunch. Wilbur does not. The next day, Tommy gets up feeling actually not shitty and like he wants to die. Not like he does. Anyway, he grabs a granola bar from the cabinet, although he knows he won't eat it come lunchtime. He fucking hates dry granola bars and their stupid fucking healthiness. Tommy grabs it anyway, knowing Wilbur would question why he didn't have lunch. Tommy walks out of the empty house he supposedly calls home and down the street, heading toward the school. It's a fairly short walk in good weather, down the street and by the park Tommy so fondly loves. He drifts as he walks, avoiding the small ache his shoulders give him for always lugging around his bag, and the morning chill on his bare arms. He picks at his cuticles like he does every morning, but for whatever reason, today it feels wrong. Fucking hell. Wilbur and his stupid-ass health talks really got to him apparently. It's not because he wants to make an effort to stop for Wilbur. Tommy huffs, and tears at a stubbornly long one enough to where it stings a bit, drawing all the way past the nail. It bleeds sluggishly, and Tommy curses, trying to stop the flow before he enters the school parking lot. He nearly succeeds before he enters the glass door, bending his finger to open it, and it cracks back open. Shit. He frowns at it, flexing his fingers and grimacing at the painful tug. He kind of went far that time. Oh well. Weaving his way through students, he makes his way to the library, where he spends the majority of his mornings. Recently, Wilbur's been joining him, and he's been enjoying it far more. But he will keep that secret safe and guarded in his heart. It's for him to know, and Wilbur to, hopefully, never find out. The library is cozy, much like all places with books, and has dark wooden everything with small plants tucked between nooks and shelves. Tommy personally has bought 3 into here. Not the librarian had noticed. She's old and sits at the front desk the whole time. Tommy smiles at one of the plants, the one dubbed Clementine, so lovingly, and walks to the back corner nook. It's a small, worn, brown love seat with bookshelves surrounding it. A warm floor lamp sits always turned on because Wilbur turns it on when he comes in the mornings. He's always here before Tommy, and his dad, Phil, is one of the teachers. Tommy won't have him until next year, though. Sadly, Wilbur will be gone, but he's decided that's for a future Tommy to worry about. The now Tommy grins at his best friend, plopping unceremoniously next to him. Wilbur smiles warmly at him and flips him off. Today, Wilbur is wearing a black shirt, brown khaki pants, and a Leatherman jacket. It looks incredibly warm. Tommy gives himself 5 minutes before he either begs for it or just yanks it off Wilbur. He knows he won't mind. "How's my favorite gremlin?" Wilbur says, running his adorned hands through Tommy's hair, and the boy leans into the comfortable touch. "Good," he says, closing his eyes briefly. Wilbur chuckles quietly, then wraps his arms around Tommy. Tommy stiffens for only for a second, glancing around for whatever reason, and melts into the hold. He rests his head on Wilbur's shoulder. Oh yeah, this jacket is for sure warm. There's no way he walks out of this room without it. Tommy sits up suddenly, startling Wilbur, who also sits up. "What, Toms?" he asks, brown eyes concerningly looking at him. Tommy grins internally. Fuck yeah, he was so getting this jacket. "Hold your arms straight out towards me," he commands, and his heart flutters as Wilbur doesn't even question him. "Just doing it. This is your fault, bitch. You consented." Tommy grins madly, and with one swift motion, pushes the back of the jacket over Wilbur's head and pulls the sleeves with the other, effectively taking it off. He immediately puts it on himself, avoiding Wilbur's shocked and amused expression. It's still warm from Wilbur's body heat, and Tommy wraps his arms around himself, trying to conserve it. It even smells like him, too. He closes his eyes contently. Wilbur laughs. "What a child," he says fondly, rolling his eyes. Tommy sticks his tongue out at him and opens his eyes to meet a grinning Wilbur. "As I said, you agreed, bitch." Wilbur smiles at him. Tommy once again flips him off. Wilbur stares at his fingers, a smile dropping as he sees the newly dried blood. It returns a second later. "Oh, I have something for you," he tells Tommy, turning around and reaching beside the couch. "For me?" Tommy asks, somewhat confused. "Yeah, after I saw your fingers yesterday, I stopped at the store to get these for you," Wilbur says, drawing out a small box and placing it in Tommy's lap. "Because I know you won't get them for yourself." He stares at it for a second, trying to process the words and what it was. Wilbur nudges him with his arm. "I hope it's all right, and I'm not overstepping, but I'd feel better if I tried to help." Tommy still can't say anything, still staring at the box. It's a box of fucking Band-Aids. It's so ridiculous, yet no one's ever noticed, let alone tried to help. It's fucking Band-Aids. He shouldn't feel like he wants to cry. "Toms?" Wilbur prompts, craning his neck to see Tommy's face. Tommy meets his gaze with watery eyes and throws his arms around the whole reason he wants to live right now. "Thank you," he whispers on Wilbur's neck as the older hugs him. 1 year later. Tommy never gave the Letterman jacket back. It's his favorite possession now. He wears it and many other of Wilbur's clothes that he's accumulated over the last few months. He does live with the man after all, which is still a crazy concept for Tommy. Only a year and a half ago, he had met his best friend and brother. Only 6 months ago, his stepfather had left completely. No trace, no contact, not even a fucking note. Tommy was in an empty house for about only a week and before Wilbur found out and insisted he moved in with him to the apartment he bought near his college. Tommy had resisted at first, not wanting to overstep into the man's life in fear he would leave, just like all the others. Wilbur had ended up basically kidnapping him and all his belongings on a claim he was sleeping over. Tommy was well aware he was not coming back to his house, and he found he didn't care as much as he thought he would. He stayed the night, and then the next, and then a week passed, and they were going shopping for his room. It was the guest room originally, but Wilbur had sworn he didn't have people over, and if his brother or dad wanted to stay over, they could go ahead and take the couch. Tommy had laughed, ignoring the warm feeling blossoming in his chest. Now, it's a gloomy Saturday morning, and Tommy wakes up to Wilbur's soft breathing and an arm slung over his waist. Come to find out, Wilbur is a clingy sleeper. Also, come to find out, Tommy enjoys physical reminders he is loved. It's a fairly new concept to him, and it sometimes hurts to think about it, but for now, he has accepted he doesn't mind hugs and cuddles and moves on with his fucking life. Tommy tries to turn over, but Wilbur whines and brings him closer to his chest. Tommy huffs fondly, crossing his arms over the jumper, Wilbur's, he's wearing. It takes a bit of effort, seeing as he's fucking being squashed by the man. He wasn't even going to sleep with Wilbur last night, but he had wandered in after finishing some homework. He doesn't know why, actually, but Wilbur's face had lit up nonetheless, so he just went with it. Wilbur had played some guitar and sung for him as Tommy dozed off, curled into his side. He eventually fell asleep, lulled by the safety and comfort of his older brother, and Wilbur had put his guitar away and fell asleep cuddling him. Tommy knows he had probably initiated the contact as soon as Wilbur had laid down. He has a tendency to do that, but he's definitely going to blame Wilbur for the predicament he's in. Tommy stares at the threads of the jumper Wilbur's wearing for as long as they entertain him, which is about 5 seconds. He lifts up a finger and starts tracing patterns on Wilbur's chest. The Bandaid circling his finger rubs oddly on the fabric, vibrating slightly, and Tommy smiles, watching the light blue fiber on the finger, its twins on all 9 of the others. He draws a smiley face, a star, a stick figure, a heart, and a dick on the jumper before the man wakes up blearily. Tommy knows the moment he wakes up, because his arms loosen slightly, and then draws him into a hug. He relaxes into the touch, sighing against the fabric as Wilbur runs a hand through Tommy's golden locks. "Mornin', Wilbur," he slurs, slightly muffled by his chest. He can practically hear Wilbur grin. He then ruffles Tommy's hair and responds, "Morning, Tommy." Tommy pushes out from his chest using one wrist, a feeble attempt, and then crams a second hand under to try and get out. Wilbur laughs, and Tommy huffs with fake annoyance. "Let me out, bitch." Wilbur giggles. "But Tommy, you don't want to leave, do you?" Tommy tries hard to conceal the grin. He really does. But it does break through when he gets into a battle with his face, trying to school the expression to annoyance, but can't help the happiness showing on his face. Wilbur starts laughing harder at his struggles, releasing him and sitting them up. Tommy huffs, giving up, and grabs his brother's wrist, leaping off the bed. Wilbur stumbles after him as they make their way out of the bedroom door, down the hall decorated with pictures, and into the well-loved kitchen. "Tommy!" Wilbur whines, tripping for the upteenth time on probably something Tommy left on the floor last night, or possibly some sheet music. "Why are we up so early?" Tommy rolls his eyes, stopping in the kitchen near the counter. Wilbur drapes his arms around Tommy, resting his chin on Tommy's head drowsily. He grins and pushes some buttons on the coffee maker to start it up. "It's 9, Will," he says smugly. "Fuck!" Wilbur exclaims, flinging his arms off of Tommy and scrambling out of the kitchen, startling Tommy, who looks quizzically at his brother, who is now running back down the hall with energy he didn't know Wilbur had this early. "I forgot to turn in my assignment last night. It was due at 8. Wilbur yells from his room frantically, and Tommy giggles, glancing pointedly at the laptop sitting on the counter in front of him. Wilbur emerges from the bedroom a moment later, something feral in his eyes, looking ever disheveled, sleepy head he is. "Where the fuck did I put it?" Tommy fully laughs, the exploding outward type, doubling over and stabbing his knees. Wilbur looks at him, sees the laptop, and then starts laughing with him. Tommy looks up, scrunching his nose up as Wilbur looks at something over his shoulder, and then laughs even more. "What, bitch?" he says when he finally catches his breath, but Wilbur's too busy laughing so hard he's crying, tears streaming down his face. A laugh bubbles up Tommy's throat just because Wilbur's laughing so genuinely and loudly over who knows what. He swallows it down, pointedly looking at Wilbur, who's laughing still, pointing a finger at Tommy. "What?" he says, confused, and it makes Wilbur laugh more, which makes Tommy smile. "What?" he says again, laughs, dancing at the words. Wilbur takes a gasping breath and chokes up. "You forgot to put a mug in the coffee maker," and collapses on the floor, giggling. Tommy whips around, taking in the coffee maker, dripping coffee down the counter onto the floor, and then his brother wriggling around in fits of hysteria at 9 in the fucking morning and probably joins his brother in laughing. Later, he'll clean up the coffee as Wilbur makes his breakfast and they chat like they do every morning. Later, Wilbur will turn his assignment late and get credit taken off like he does every morning. But right now, they bask in the ridiculousness of the moment and cherish the feeling of love. That, if you want to read the end, there it is. Thank you all for listening and watching, and don't forget to go support this creator. I will go back up to the top so you can see it. Little Blue Bandaid Boy by Artemis_Venus. I really appreciate them for letting me read this out loud with their permission, of course. I always give people's permission, and I hope y'all subscribe. I would really appreciate it. It helps a lot. Like and maybe even share the video to your friends if they like this fandom as well. Don't forget to leave some read my description so you can read like what I would not read, and don't forget to make suggestions. Like I said, I mostly read Tommy centric and SBI. I will only read happy endings because my mental health cannot do that. Yeah. Like I said, don't forget to subscribe if you will like to, but I would really appreciate it. And I hope you have a good rest of your day, night, afternoon, whatever time it is. And I'll see y'all when I have the next video out. Bye.